Sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry, thank you. Oh, wow. Afternoon, ladies and gents, and you join me on Lower Thames Street in the church of St Magnus the Martyr. And what we're looking at here is a 17th, late 17th, early 18th century fire engine. So anyone that watched my Great Fire of London series will remember these. St Michael, Crooked Lane, Church Wardens. Ouch. John Bartholomew, Church Wardens. Oh, that's amazing. I love things like this. Benefactions to the poor. Oh look, this table was here placed as a memorial of a dreadful fire which suddenly broke out with great violence about 10 o'clock in the morning on the 18th of April 1760. Alright, I'll zoom in and you guys and girls can read that if you wish. Being careful not to crash into the 18th century fire engine. Back to our 18th century Bristow. Maker, 12 Church Lane, Whitechapel. I absolutely love things like this. This is what I was saying to you. They had handles on them. I won't touch it. You just don't touch these kinds of things. But people would stand on this side. People would stand on that side. And this is obviously on a pivot. And they would lift up and down, and it would pump the water out. Right. Should we go this way first? This door open? Go through the main door. Even just the entrance to this church is an amazing one. This church and its history, which you'll see a little bit more of on the outside, spans from the Roman to the Great Fire, the Great Plague, right up to the current day. And I won't show the inscriptions, but that's the Book of Condolences for the death, to mark the death of Her Majesty the Queen. Where are we? Our alarm should be here somewhere. This is the baptistry, of course, where the font is. This may be a bit of a long one, guys and girls, because this church is one I've been wanting to see for a while. For good reason, as you can see. As we heard and saw in my Great Fire of London series, when Mr. Pepys wrote that the fire spread down Fish Street Hill and to this church. And interestingly enough, this church here is originally where Old London Bridge began. And we'll be seeing some of the stones of that on the outside. The Fishmongers Guild. Now with their arms. And the font lid cover is, the rope there, is suspended. So it may be weighted, or someone up there will pull on it and up or lift the font cover to baptise children. Or adults, adult baptism. Right. St. Michael. This church has some very, very impressive stained glass. I was advised on that I would like the stained glass in this one. Walking down Lower Thames Street, I just see the guns being brought in for the salute for Her Majesty, which may be tomorrow. I'm not sure when that will happen, but I'll do a screen recording of that because it will be public domain, and I'll show as much as I can, because whether you're a royalist or not, the Queen was Queen for 70 years. She's the longest reigning British monarch in history. And she was a very dutiful Queen. You have to give her that. I won't focus on all the memorials, of course, just the most interesting ones. I'm standing on some there. I hate doing that. Sorry. St. Thomas, London Bridge. Yeah, because you had, Old London Bridge had two churches on it. One was the Waterman's Church, and one was the Travellers' Church up on the bridge, where people would give thanks for coming back from a journey or pray for safety on a journey, because don't forget this is in the age of pilgrimages, and life was a lot more dangerous back then than it is now. These friezes are a lovely look. They're all scenes from the Bible and the life of Christ and the death of Christ and the resurrection of Christ. And this is one of the things that I was advised that I would like. This ship. Thanks to Carol Brabender, if you watch this, Carol, for your help and information with this one. Carol's churchwarden of Barking. And what that lady doesn't know about churches is not worth knowing. St. Margaret. St. Magnus the Martyr. There we are. The saint and martyr for who this church is named. That's better. Zoom in, you can see his face better now. That stained glass is stunning, look at that. Past parishioners buried there, look. Here lies the body of Mr. Thomas Lau, who departed this life in February the 11th, 1766, in the 62nd year of his age. Sir James Sanderson, Baron, served at the office of Sheriff of London and Middlesex in 1783, and was elected Lord Mayor in 1792, in which high station he displayed a spirit of fortitude and prudence in checking the rising spirit of faction and revolt. I'll let you read the rest of that. Just pause to read any of the descriptions as I'm going to say. Oh, that's better. You can see St Magnus better now. And there he holds the Church of St Magnus in his hands. St Magnus himself. Wow, look. The Virgin Mary and Christ. When Christ was taken down from the cross. I won't get too close, of course, because it's obviously a historical art treasure, but this will be the sacristy, I think. Could be wrong. That'll be where a bishop sits. The vestments given for use of the Requiem altar in memory of Mary and Pyle Bridges and of her eldest son Edward Kenneth, killed by the Japanese, Singapore, 24th of February 1942, age 19 years, and who has no known grave. Of our charity, pray for the souls of the Pyle Bridges family who love this church and the faith it proclaims. One of our heroes. The world's many of those, haven't they, from the First World War and Second World War. There you can hear the bells of St Magnus chiming. I'm waiting on to hear back on a permission visit to look inside a church tower, which is something I've wanted to do to tick off my list. So that should be an interesting one. This statue is based on the figure of Jesus Christ painted by Van Eyck in his Ghent altarpiece. I always save the high altar to last, as you know, so that will be last. But here's the organ. And in a minute I'll show you something amazing that I wanted to see for a while. Right, that will do you for that bit, because I save the high altar to last. What the amazing thing is I want to see is this. Southwark, an old London bridge. This model is what the recreation you've seen on my page recently is based on. So ladies and gents, let's step back in time and have a little zoom through old London Bridge. That's amazing. This is what caused the Thames to freeze over, because the trunnions at the bottom were so narrow. It slowed the water down, and a lot of people didn't even like to go under the bridge when the tide was going out. Some people did, they rid the rapids and a few drowned like that, and some boatmen refused to do it. But yeah, that's what caused the Thames to freeze over, and then you would have frost fears. And this here is what you see, they was able to stop the fire by pulling up the drawbridges. So much detail, look at the person there hanging out the window. Now he's emptying a piss pot out the window. London Bridge was also the first place in Britain to have public toilets. They emptied straight into the Thames, I'm afraid. And there's a boat going through. As I say, this one is likely to be a little bit long, because this is an amazing church and we've not even covered all of it yet. So you're going to have to be in it to win it with this one. I may do it in part 1 and part 2 though, because it's really difficult uploading very, very long recordings. One of the churches, look, as I say. That's the first church. And here we are as the second one. People at the top there. This model actually, as you can imagine, took several years to create. Another person there. So much detail in this. And the reason this is here, because this is where old London Bridge started originally. It's a bit further on now, London Bridge, up the river, but this is where it began originally. There we are, people waiting for a boat from one of the many Thames boatmen. You've got a Knight Templar man there. city of London. Sometimes it could take several hours to cross London Bridge because it was very narrow and had all these buildings on it. But it was a commercial hub. If you could get a shop or a trade going on London Bridge, you had a trade for life. Hungry, angry travellers and pilgrims always needed their food or a bit of beer or whatnot. There we are, this is the church I was on about. Up the top there is for the travellers, and down below here is for the watermen, or those wishing to go from river to church to pray. Circa 1400, modelled by David T. Agate, liveryman of the Worshipful Company of Plumbers, 1987. If I can find a picture of that man, I will put that on with this, because this deserves such recognition, and can you imagine how long this must have taken to make, and the effort that he put into it. Yeah, that's old London Bridge, guys and girls. Hope you enjoyed that bit. They are absolutely stunning, aren't they, those stained glass windows? That'll be for all the different livery companies. Prayer for England. Dozens of memorials up on the wall there. I'll just hone in on a couple of them for you. I'll probably just keep this to one recording because we ain't got that much more to do. It'll be under an hour, just maybe nearly an hour, but it is as it is. Actually, no it won't. I will do it in 2 parts, because if I do over an hour, Facebook mutes it. So when we get to 30 something minutes in a minute, I will end you and we will have a part 2. Oops. Oh look, an air-powered organ. A harmonium, I think they're called. Please join me again in a minute for part 2.